What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, I'm just happy that we are recording this a day after the Bills lost, because having to record an episode right after what we witnessed on Sunday night would have just been terrible.
Yeah, it's almost like if you just go back a couple of years and it was just as bad.
Yeah.
When they only had 13 seconds. But we learned, and hopefully the Bills will learn, because we learned to have our episode delayed recording and record it a little bit after the playoff game is over and give ourselves some time to relax. I think, personally, we should just release essentially the transcript between you and me that has been going on since last night and throughout all of today, and all of our back and forth conversation we've had about this team, because that's essentially what this episode's going to be, is just us going back and forth, what went wrong, what went right, what the future looks like, which we'll try really hard, I guess, not to get into too much, because we have a very sad, depressing, long, more depressing than usual offseason to get through. But happy that we gave ourselves a little bit of time to emotionally settle down. We're not coming into the super hot, but even this morning, you and I were both kind of woke up still very upset, and our feelings hadn't faded quite as much, I think, as we would have liked.
Yeah, so I am, we're both recording around 3:30 on Monday afternoon, and Brooke's still at work, so I got all three dogs running around the house, so if you see them running around making noise, that's what it is. But we'll dive into the show. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com, and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Like we said, we'll start with the Bills. 27-24 defeat once again to the Kansas City Chiefs. The only change this time in the playoffs was it was on their home turf. Phil, I don't know where we want to start with this, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, but I will let you take the lead. Maybe we start with the good and then finish with the bad, because I'm still, like you said, I'm still a little hot and a little bothered, and not in a good way, about this team.
Yeah, I feel like the second we really start getting into this, it's gonna all rush right back, because it wasn't that long ago. It was less than 24 hours and then some. So it's still extremely fresh. It's still all there. I guess we'll start with the positive. They kept it close. It really should have been a game they won, which I guess is about as positive as we could possibly get. I mean, if they throw the touchdown at the end there, I think they were controlling that drive very well. If they pretty much run off the clock, get a touchdown, and then your defense just has to stop KC from scoring a touchdown, I think the game was theirs. And the post-game press conference, which I feel so bad for these players and coaches that have to go through that. I understand it's in their contract. I understand we want to see it. We want to know what they're feeling. But, I mean, Josh Allen just looked beyond defeated. But listening to him, even on that play, they did ask him at one point, they said, like, coming out of the 2-minute warning, did you think the game was yours? And he said, yes, we thought at that point in the game we were going to win. Like, we score a touchdown here, we're going to win this game. So coming out of the 2-minute warning, they had the confidence that this was their game to win. I mean, so I guess the positive right there would be simply you made it all the way to the 2-minute warning in a game against the Chiefs in the playoffs at home, thinking you were going to win, and then in typical Bills fashion, it falls apart and blows up in your face. But I mean, I guess that's the main positive, is you were in this game. The defense attempted to hold together as best as they could. We knew it was going to be an offensive game for this team. If they were going to win, it was going to have to be through the offense. The defense was simply not going to be able to hold. I mean, you got AJ Klein coming in off the street trying to, run protect against Kelsey. It's simply not going to happen. It's not even fair to really ask AJ Klein to do something like that. So it's just the state of the defense that they were in, but they gave the offense the opportunity to win the game, and they almost had it, but once again came up short, like they always do.
Yeah, I mean, as bad as the defense looked in that first half, and for the majority of the game where they just literally couldn't stop anybody, which is, it makes sense when you're down to the players that they were down to. Not an excuse, especially with the defensive line, because the defensive line was just putrid, and we'll talk about that in our bad section. But like you just mentioned, they gave the offense the opportunity when it mattered to go down and take the lead The Kansas City Chiefs didn't score past 14 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That's how good the defense did. On that fake punt, which I'm actually a fan of, I thought that was a good decision by Sean McDermott, especially after what he said was he didn't believe that the defense was able to stop the offense, and that was true because we were seeing it over and over. I want my head coach to go down swinging, and he did that. Now, was it a smart play to take your star quarterback off the field and go for it? No. But in the end, we wanted Sean McDermott to be more aggressive in the 7+ years he's been here. And he was just that, going down swinging. And I will take that 10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100 times, him making those aggressive play calls. And I more blame the execution where nobody was blocking Damar Hamlin on the fake punt. And apparently that was the call going in. So everybody knew that was the call going in. It's not like it was the 13 seconds, the kickoff, and nobody actually knew what was going on. But anyways, that's more negative. But the defense made the stops when they needed to. They got the ball. They punched the ball out. Jordan Poyer punched the ball out on the 1-yard line, and it dribbled out of the end zone. If you want to say that dribbling out of the end zone was lucky, fine, it was, but they caused the turnover. They got another stop where it was a bad flag, a very late flag, and then they still forced Kansas City to punt the ball. So as bad as the defense was and as bad as the defensive line was, they made the stops when they had to. The offense, on the turn of it, scored 24 points. I said, and I'm patting myself on the back for this, if they scored 30 points in this game, they would have won it. And honestly, I really do firmly believe if they would have scored the 31 points that it would have taken there, if you would have scored the touchdown on that final drive, you would have won that game. Kick the kick all you want. Tyler Bass, if he makes that, doesn't matter. Kansas City's going down the field and scoring a game-winning field goal. We know what's happening. Even in the wind, we know that's happening because it's happened so often. But the defense got the stops when they needed to, and I absolutely it's to me, with where the defense was, I'm giving them a pass because of how hurt they were. They did not look good whatsoever. I'm not absolving them from everything, but I'm not putting the majority of the blame on them. I'm putting it on the offense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and the offense, to me, I feel like they're getting more slack. And I know you and I think, differ a little bit on this one. I think they're getting a little bit more slack than they should give it. I feel like people are underestimating what KC's defense really is this year and how incredible of a season they've had. And I think it was, 8 weeks in a row, they haven't even allowed 20 points all season. They haven't allowed 30. Like, this defense is extremely good. They're very legit. This is what this team has been built on this entire year. Normally it's their offense. Their offense has been pitiful this year, and their defense has been keeping them in games, allowing them to win. And their defense has been everything. So for the Bills to be able to do what they did for as long as they did, and again, it really came down to you had a chance to win it with 2 minutes left. Like, this wasn't a blowout. This wasn't a game that, by halftime it was over or anything like that. Like, the Bills had every opportunity to win this game, and when their offense needed to come up clutch, they couldn't figure it out. And I do agree with you. I think that's on the offense, not the defense, as far as, losing this game. You had to get to 30. I think they knew that. And again, no team has done that against the Chiefs defense the entire season. But still, that's what it takes in the playoffs to win. They weren't able to do that. So I do agree. I think it's on the offense as far as if you want to really point a blame. But I still don't think the offense had a bad game. Like, I don't think you can look at this game and just say the offense was terrible by any means. Like, they still did pretty well on offense. You still put up, again, 24 points, more points than anyone has on this defense in 8 weeks. It's not what they needed. They know they needed more, which is the issue. But I still think overall, offensively, it wasn't a putrid, terrible game, but it wasn't a good one either. I mean, you had a first half punt, and even when that first half punt came, I was like, okay, well, that's the game. You punted once, and that's all that it really takes in the game. Every single time we watch these two teams play, it literally comes down to that, and it's so nerve-wracking when you have to watch these two teams, because literally one punt, and you're like, okay, well, the game's over. Like, that's it. That's all it takes in these two games, and it's just so frustrating to watch these teams. But, like, even after they got the ball back and then to go 3 and out, and then you're like, okay, well, now it's over. And then they got the ball back again. You're like, okay. Like, they kept giving the offense opportunities to make something happen, and in the end, when they were needed the most, they fell flat, which is unfortunate. But again, I don't think the offense necessarily had a brutal, awful, terrible game, but they did not do what they needed to put a win out there, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, my last positive, and then I'll talk about the offense. Josh Allen, he's just incredible once again. I mean, the throw to Shakir, yes, it was an unbelievable catch, but the play he made throwing cross-body to find him in the end zone on a broken play, just elite level quarterbacking. He just takes his game to another level in the playoffs. The toss back to Ty Johnson to set up the 4th and 1 that they end up going for. The bomb to Diggs, yes, he dropped the ball, but that throw with the wind and the cold, he put that exactly where it needed to be. That he's just a different animal. And what sucks is that he's been on the losing side of all these games, and in the playoffs, he's just elite. I think he's like 27 touchdowns and 4 interceptions or something like that in his career in the playoffs. It's just filthy. It's filthy numbers. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever to play in the playoffs, and he can't get by the divisional round. And I can't put the blame on where I was saying where the offense was at fault in this one. It's not because of Josh Allen whatsoever. I mean, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not putting any blame on Josh Allen whatsoever. There was one play where I think you can critique him at all, and it was the 2nd and 9 where he didn't take Diggs, but the more time I'm watching it, he had Shakir if he just steps up in the pocket and doesn't get pushed into by Chris Jones, who's pushing Deion Dawkins into him. I think he makes that if he's able to step into it. If he adjusts his spot in the pocket, I think that's a touchdown. That's the only criticism I have in this entire game, even with the fumble where he was being, superhero Josh Allen. But my thing is, I agree. The offense was moving the ball flawlessly in the first half. They were running over the Chiefs in the run game. Everything that they were doing in the first half, I was perfectly fine with. It's the second half. You scored 7 points on this defense. You scored 17 in the first half, 7 points, and the 7 points came on your first drive in the third quarter. And still, even with that, it took 15 plays and 8:25 to do it. That's my biggest issue is Kansas City scored. Where is this? With 14:20 to go in the fourth quarter. And that was the last points in this game. That's what's getting me, because the next drives, 4 plays, 7 yards, 127 off the clock. Then, the punt. 3 plays, -2 yards, 124 off the clock. And then it was the missed field goal. So that's where if you're going to play the style of play they played, where it was time management, keep your defense on the sidelines, it's all hurt. Methodically moving it down the field so you take time off the clock, and the error, the range of error that you're allowed is so minuscule that you can't make any mistakes. And yes, the first half was going great. I mean, they had 1 punt, whoop-de-doo, but they were playing exactly how you wanted to draw that up in the first half. Even the first drive in the third quarter, they went down. Like I said, 15 plays, 75 yards, 8:25. That's perfect if you want to keep doing that. But you had nothing else in your arsenal, and I'm not even really blaming the play calling. I still don't. We were having the conversation, and this is down the road that we can talk about it later, about Joe Brady and if he's the OC moving forward. And I think we both believe he will be, but do we want him to be is the different question. We'll talk about that down the road. But I can't even really blame the play calling. It's more the execution. And your star players and the playmakers on the team, besides Khalil Shakir, nobody was stepping up and doing much. Kincaid disappeared. Sherfield drops 2 balls. Diggs dropped the ball and then couldn't get open. Cook drops a surefire touchdown. Yes, that ended up being a touchdown whatsoever, but going into the negatives here, the offense just is a big letdown when you needed them to be the star performance. And you can pat the backs of Kansas City all you want. I completely get it, but you got Josh Allen, you got enough. I'm not even saying you got enough talent, but nobody else stepped up but Josh Allen. And that's what's so annoying to me watching this game over and over and over is Josh Allen put on the performance of a quarterback that should be in the Super Bowl this year, and he didn't get any help.
Yeah, Shakir finished 7 of 9, only 44 yards, but still, I think most of his catches were hard-earned catches that were pretty impressive. I mean, the touchdown, absolutely incredible. Even that screen pass they had to him trying to set up that first down, he had to swing his entire body backwards, catch it, and then still take off running. So he looked incredible. But then, I mean, you swing to the opposite side and you got 3 of 8 for Diggs, and that was probably the worst one. I know you mentioned Kincaid, but he was 5 of 5 for 45 and actually led the team in receiving. So he might have been a little bit more simply scheme was not finding him until the second half when they finally started to use him. And then, like, it actually worked out pretty well for them in the second half as he started to get going. But just feeding the players that were doing so well, were not getting fed. And Diggs, I don't know. I don't understand Diggs at all. I mean, especially being who he is and being just one of the greatest wide receivers in the league, you can't drop that ball. Like, plain and simple. That's a Gabe Davis kind of move to drop a ball like that right through your hands. A monster 50-yard pass play that could have completely changed the entire game. Like, you simply cannot do that. I understand it happens in life. It happens in sports. Like, plays like that just exist. But in that situation, being a team's wide receiver one and being one of the better ones in the entire league, you got to have that play. And even like you said, like Sherfield, I know he's not your dynamic wide receiver. He's not your top guy. He's one of your wide receiver 5, arguably, on this team. But still, you're a wide receiver in the NFL. It was a pretty I know he had to dive for it, but it was a pretty uncontested catch, and maybe the wind blew it a little bit as he's diving for it. But it's just the small plays like that, like you mentioned, that Allen just was not getting the help he needed. I mean, Cook, other than his typical seems to not want to catch walk-in touchdowns. I think he had a pretty good game. I thought the swing passes to him to just get him out in space and get 5, 6, 7 yards on first down. I think the first down play calling seemed to work really well until the fourth quarter, where they ran it up the middle twice and lost yards and then ended up losing the entire down. I don't know what happened on those two, but other than that, the first yardage that they were getting was really good. But like you said, Allen, even him, his carries, 12 carries for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tried to put the team on his back the best he could. The only one that really seemed, Kincaid and Shakir to me were stepping up. Cook was doing decently well, but I think the biggest issue with this, and again, I don't know if it's a Brady thing. I don't know if Diggs just doesn't care anymore, gave up, just had a rough game or had a rough entire second half of the season. I don't understand what's going on between Diggs and Brady and Allen and why they're not on the same page, but your number one wide receiver cannot go 3 of 8 for 21 yards in a must-win playoff game. It's just not going to allow you to win the game. I mean, Kelsey had his, first touchdown in 8 weeks, finally, and they ended up getting 2 of them. That's the kind of step up you need from your top players in a game like this, and Diggs just, once again, disappeared, and I don't understand why. I don't know what went on there. Again, just between Brady, Allen, and Diggs, something was not working, but you needed him to step up in this game, and he all but disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Snead effect, and it's the lack of other weapons on the outside, so they can't shadow box Stephon Diggs. I mean, the last, how many weeks that we've seen Joe Brady, the only time he's been able to get Stephon Diggs involved in the offense is passes 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Or
it's not good enough. Yeah, it's not good enough. And Diggs, weeks 1 through 9, 70 receptions, 834 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Since Joe Brady took over, in week 10, I believe it was, 47 receptions, 422 yards, and 1 touchdown. To me, your wide receivers don't just fall off a cliff from 1 week to the next. To me, that's a scheme thing. And I'm not trying to look forward too much. I'm still trying to talk about this game and the past games this season and try to put a bow on it. But to me, you can't be considered a legit offensive coordinator in this league if you can't get your wide receiver 1 more involved. Where were the passes where he's wide open for 15, 20-yard gains? The only times that they were able to even try to get him the ball behind or in front of the line of scrimmage were bomb shots. He dropped one, and the other one the other week was like 5 yards in front of him. That can't happen when your best offensive weapon besides Josh Allen is just non-existent. It was too easy under Joe Brady's, and I'm trying not to pile onto him because a lot of this is execution. And a lot of this is just the players on the field not stepping up in the positions that they're put in. But the wide receivers in this game were 12 of 21 for 75 yards and 1 touchdown. That's not good enough. The first half, 22 runs for 124. That's a 5.6 yards a carry. In the second half, 17 runs for 58 yards and a 3.4 yards per carry. It's not good enough. The offense was just flat out not good enough in the second half. There were 13 plays of second and fourth or less. 10 of them were runs, 3 of them were called plays. That can't happen either. I got so sick and tired of hearing Tony Romo saying, "Oh, this is why I believe they're going to win the Super Bowl because they can actually run the ball." I don't give two farts if they can run the ball. Guess what? Lost. They ran it 39 times. They passed it 39 times. They lost by 3. This whole second half of trying to establish the run when you were getting jammed up the middle the whole time, Cook had no lanes to run because they were packing the box because they knew they weren't going to be able to throw it because they had no weapons out there. Kincaid just disappeared, and I think that's a scheme thing, and this is why I was still so hot. And I'm still not trying to look forward, but when your offense, you don't have guys running wide open, and I liked the play calls in the first half. I have no problem with the play calls in the first half, but there was no counterpunch in the second half when the Kansas City Chiefs defense came out and said, "Hey, we're not doing this anymore. You're not going to run it down our throats and move methodically down the field." They had no counterpunch, and to me, that is the offensive coordinator, in my opinion. That's where I'm sitting at is I can't put the full loss on him because the execution wasn't there, but the whole second half after that first drive in the third quarter, this game is on the offense because the game was there for the taking and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, they had, back-to-back 3-and-outs? Is that right?
Back-to-back.
Yeah, so
if you want to include the fake punt, but yeah, it was back-to-back 3-and-outs.
Right, and if after the first one, when you realized that KC was starting to blitz, they were starting to stack the box, they were throwing absolutely everything to stop the run and just daring you to pass it. After that first, 3-and-out, where you're like, okay, they clearly have shifted their ways to stuff the run, and then you come back out the very next drive and just run it right up the middle for a negative loss. Again, like that's where the counter punch needs to happen. Like you saw their counter punch after your really long third quarter touchdown. They finally made the adjustment in the fourth quarter to counter your running ability. They decided to blitz like crazy, stack the box, and get in your face. And there was no counter to that series. Like the first 3-and-out that they had in the second half, they absolutely got pushed back and crushed and pretty much annihilated. And then there was no counter coming out of that second, 3-and-out that they just went right back to what they thought was working the entire game. And there was no just switch in execution. Like that's where you almost need a first down play action pass. Like, you've been running up the middle on first down or running the ball on first down every single time pretty much. That's when you need a quick little play action, find someone like, a Stephon Diggs open for a 10-yard gain and start moving the ball again. But that just didn't happen, and I don't know if that is, like you said, execution. I don't know if that's simply Joe Brady being a very inexperienced OC, having just half a year under his belt. Maybe it's something that if the Bills keep him, that is something he will learn over time. I don't know, but just unfortunate. Like you said, the offensive game plan worked extremely well until it didn't, and then when it didn't, there was just no counter until the very end when they started moving again extremely well. And I mean, it came down to a fourth and kind of long, and they were able to pick that up. And then again, out of that 2-minute warning, they thought they had it, but fell short. Frustrating. I do believe it's on the offense. I don't think I don't know. I mean, we can talk about Bass real quick. It's unfortunate he missed that kick, but like you mentioned earlier, I don't think that kick mattered whatsoever. I think if you like, that's I guess a different question for you. Like, why you and I both agree that if Bass hits that, there's no way Kansas City doesn't march down the field and hit their own field goal to win it. As McDermott, like, why are you even going for a field goal there? Like, why are you not even just go for it? Like, I really truly believe that a field goal there means absolutely nothing at that point in the game. There's no way your defense is holding them to stop them when they had 2 minutes left and 2 timeouts pretty much. I think it was down to like a minute, 47 or 37 or something like that they got the ball back with 2 timeouts. They're going to get a field goal to win it. Their place kicker, Bucker, is one of the best in the entire league. Like, they're not missing a field goal. I don't care what the wind's doing. He just drilled one right through the uprights earlier in the game with no problem. So I don't know, in that situation, I don't know what it was. Trying to look at it real quick before they turned it over. It was 4th and 9. Again, it's a long, I get it's a long play, but I truly believe that a field goal meant nothing, and I don't know why you're not going for it in that situation. I understand 4th and 9 is not something that's going to be easy to get, but a field goal to me just meant nothing.
I think I know why. It's because the previous 2 drives that Kansas City had, the one was the fumble that they punched out and it became theirs, and then the other one was the punt. And
you're just hoping that your defense learned from its mistakes and could.
I think Sean McDermott went back to I'm a defensive head coach. We're going to kick the field goal, tie it up, and we're going to get a stop here. And I think that was the disconnect there. It was Sean McDermott was going for the kick to tie it up. I think if it was like 4th and 4, I think if it was closer, I think he would have thought about going for it. But because I think Josh Allen was on the other side going, if we don't score here, we're going to kick a field goal, and then they're going to go down and end it, and I'm not going to have the opportunity to go and counter that. I think it was the two sides butting heads of Sean McDermott, the head coach, seeing 4th and 9, and his defense just had 2 back-to-back drives where they were able to shut down Kansas City and get the ball back, and Josh Allen saying, I've seen this before. I've been in the same position before. If I don't score here, we're going to lose.
And I'm not going to overtime again.
Exactly. And that's why I think the 2nd and 9 and the 3rd and 9, you saw the decision-making by Josh Allen trying to go for the kill shot of scoring rather than what got them to that position of the methodical down the field, because he realized, hey, 2nd and 9, as soon as he missed Shakir there, it was, I have to pick up this first down here because otherwise we're going to kick a field goal and I'm not going to see the ball again. I honestly think it was the two heads, without really speaking about it, butting heads, because, the one, Josh Allen has seen this before, and 2, Sean McDermott has just seen his defense get 2 stops back-to-back to get his offense the ball back.
Yeah, that 3rd and 9 is really the only play pretty much all game I had against Allen. Obviously, the fumble was unfortunate, but it recovered by the Bills, so it didn't mean anything. But the 2nd and 9 Shakir throw, I mean, the announcers even mentioned it was very similar to Gabe Davis over the middle last season or whenever that was against KC to, burn him and get a touchdown. And then like you mentioned, and even he mentioned in the post-game press conference that had he had a little bit more pocket awareness and taken one step one other way, or even if Dawkins would have given him literally half a second more to throw that ball, that's a touchdown. So that play, whatever. I have no problem with that. It was open. It was there. Yeah, I don't think he was gunning necessarily just for the end zone on that play, but it was open, and Shakir's been there for him the entire game. So that one I had no problem with. It was the 3rd and 9 that he ended up scrambling immediately super far away and then just ended up chucking it out of bounds. I think on that one he had Shakir wide open on the left side of the field if he would have looked, and I think you could have gotten into
he had Kincaid as well right in the middle.
Yeah, I think if he would have just settled down in that, I think that's the one that got too much to him that he needed mentally. He wanted to throw a touchdown, end the game, and that was all he had in his mind. I think that one, if he would have settled down and found a way, like you just mentioned, to get 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, or even a first down there, I think the end of that game is a little bit different. But other than that, I'm like you said, I'm not blaming Allen for pretty much any of this game, but just unfortunate. And here we are again.
We got a whole off season now to talk about what the plan is, what we think is going to happen. I know locker cleanout was today. It sounds like Gabe Davis is hitting free agency and very unlikely to come back. Jordan Phillips and Micah Hyde are both questionable if they're going to continue their playing careers. There are a lot of players that are, going to free agency or plan to go to free agency because the Bills are $49 million over the cap. And yes, we joke all the time that the cap is just this made up thing. Josh Allen's contract is actually hitting this year unless they do, sign to the paper and push that money further down the road. But you got some big contracts that are coming up right now. And then there's a lot of players that are ready to hit free agency. So there's going to be a ton of changes with this team. Plenty of time to talk about it in the offseason, but just another absolutely heartbreaking and disappointing loss to end another Bills season. And we've been on the end of 3 of them covering this show now. And they're not getting any easier. At least we're being smarter about when we're recording this, but we both were still high. We're both still heartbroken about this. And it doesn't get any. I sat on my couch, Phil, for a good hour and a half after that game ended, just trying to process and figure out not even just how that happened, more just how does this team ever win a Super Bowl? Like that was my thinking was I don't know if this team is ever going to be able to cross that final threshold, not only just to get to the Super Bowl, but to actually win one.
Yeah, and that was the kind of the problem with this year, especially. I know 13 seconds, obviously frustrating and hurts. This one, arguably, not just as close. You were 13 seconds away, but pretty much a very similar situation. You're within 2 minutes. You score a touchdown there. You have a pretty good shot of winning it. So very similar, but this one I think hurts a little bit more because it's looking like, and again, like you said, I don't want to get too far into it because we have a long off season to talk about it, but it looks like this is literally the end of an era for this team as far as, like you just mentioned, before Josh Allen's contract kicks in, you had the time and the money to be able to sign players like Von Miller and spend on some of these bloated contracts to bring players in to win now. And your Super Bowl window, I'm not saying this team won't be good. I'm not saying they won't make playoffs. I'm sure they will be still a talented team. You still have Josh Allen. As long as he's your quarterback, you have a chance no matter what. But it just feels like the end of an era in a way, because I mean, even the Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, like this has been Matt Milano. I know he didn't play, but like this has been, that core has been there. Diggs and Allen for, 7-ish years now, maybe a little less for some of these guys, but that core has been here for a really long time. And it just seemed like this was their Super Bowl window. These last 3 years was it. Like this was your time to make that run. And now with Allen's contract kicking in, the cap issues, we'll see what happens. I'm sure they will still be good, but now it just feels like that core, that that time period is over, and now they have to find a new way to start again in a way. So it'll be a long, interesting offseason. Just I feel like this one hurts a little bit more because it seems like the end of a run, at least for this core of players.
So we will put a nice bow on, we'll try to, on our next show, where we will go over our awards and our nominees. And then the following show on that following Monday, which I can't think of the date right now, I think it's the 29th, will be the award winners being announced. So Friday, we'll talk about the awards and the nominees. And then that following Monday show, we will award those awards. So let's continue with heartbreak. Buffalo Bandits, Friday night game. They lost 15-13. Frazier had 4, Byrne had 3, Nanakoke, McKay, and Smith each had 2. Shots were 60-44 in favor of the Bandits. Vince, 26 of 38 saves. Orleman came in relief for a bit. 3 of 5 saves. Faceoffs were 19 for 12 for New York. Phil, it almost felt like a Rochester game all over again, except the offense wasn't able to keep pace with what New York was doing.
I mean, they did until
but not like against the Rochester where it was like neck and neck the whole time. New York just put the foot on their throat and just went, hey, good luck trying to keep up.
And they almost did. Yeah. Oh, man, this is just a depressing time. So
Yep.
This game, it's similar to a few of their games where they've either lost or had a very close comeback win. Like you mentioned, Rochester. There's been just a few games now, and I wrote a little bit about it in my article, where they've just had one really, really bad quarter, and then all of a sudden they have to play catch up, and in the second half they seem to do a pretty good job of that, but it's just digging that hole way too deep in order to catch up. And it's almost frustrating that when it was 11-4 and it was still in the first half, I was like, all right, this is terrible, but I have faith in this team to be able to come back from this situation. Like, you shouldn't have to have the faith of that. They should never be down 11-4 against a team like this. I know you and I both agree that New York is much better than their record shows. I think they're a better team than people think, but still, you should not be being outplayed this badly in the first half, and they were able to find a way to come all the way back and then just lose it at the last minute. But even still, you just can't dig yourself an 11-4 hole and expect to come back, and that's exactly what they did, and they almost did it, but not quite. But as far as just how they got there, I guess we can start pretty much with the negative and then go into some of the positives. The defense was just playing ridiculously soft in the first half. They were allowing way too much time and space for every single Riptide player out there, especially Jeff Teat. They just allowed him to do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. And even after that, the passes he was making to players who were cutting wide open in front of the net, and just shots that were being taken with no pressure on them whatsoever. Just the entire defense was playing very slow and very soft in the first half, and they completely flipped a switch in the second half. They played much more aggressive, much quicker, and hey, look at that. They completely shut them down for the most part until the very last minute there. But the defense in that really bad second quarter just looked, again, very slow, very soft, allowing the Riptide way too much of an opportunity to do whatever they want. And that offense is absolutely talented enough to do exactly what they did when you give them time and space.
Yeah, I'm not going to be so gentle. The second quarter, that defense was just hot dog doo doo. Like
They
there's
were
no
terrible.
other way around it. I I thought that the Rochester game was a wake up call for this defense of playing soft, giving the shooters a foot to 2 feet of space.
Right.
And we said this for how long? Jeff Teet's going to get his. You have to, have a counterpunch for the other guys. Riley O'Connor, 1, 7, and 8. Stephen Keogh,
I called
four
it.
goals.
Called it.
Matisse, 7 points. It's just the secondary pieces that you just needed to, lock down and not give them the opportunity, not give them the time and space. They killed you. Jeff Teat had a 10-point night, yes, but it was the secondary pieces that really killed you. I don't understand, and you hit the nail on the head. It's one bad quarter that seems to do the Buffalo Bandits in, and I agree with that. But you're the defending champions. A lot of this defense, yes, hasn't really played together. I get that. But you still have veterans back there like Ian McKay, Steve Priolo, Nick Weiss, Matt Spang. You have veteran pieces around these younger pieces back there. I don't understand. And a lot of the times, it was the vets that were playing so far off. I couldn't imagine how and couldn't envision how many times I saw Matt Spanger, and I'm not trying to single any player out, but how many times I saw him right in front of me in the second half where he's just giving so much space, and the lack of communication on the picks. That was killing them. Was they were setting picks, and then it was. Yeah, the pick and rolls were the thing that we were asking the Buffalo Bandits to do was used against the Buffalo Bandits, and it was killing them. And then on top of that, where Matt Vince is usually lights out, he was not performing and stepping up and having the defense's back. There were a couple squeakers that they had. New York had 7 goals in 7 minutes and 9 seconds in that second quarter. There was just no stopping them. It was just unbelievable the run they were going on, and it almost felt like, is this the same Buffalo Bandits team that we've been watching for years and years and years? They don't give up runs like this. Like, this isn't a typical Buffalo Bandits run that they give up. And on top of that, it was just, there were stupid penalties that were being taken. They were getting annoyed and overly aggressive and taking dumb penalties. And I thought this was a really rough game for Dylan Robinson. I don't exactly know what they need to do. Maybe it's trying to get some of these defenders back. Zach Belter, Frank Brown, maybe down the road an Adam Bomberg. But I wouldn't be shocked if you see Steve Dietrich out there making phone calls and trying to bring in reinforcements for this defense, because this is back-to-back weeks now where you have seen a first half of a defense that just playing too soft, too unorganized, and just getting burned, and then you're relying on the offense to make an epic comeback, which they did, and they tied it 13-13, but immediately the defense lets Jeff Teat wide open in front of Matt Vince and score again, and another bad miscommunication where nobody picks them up. It's just, this is another situation where the defense just burned them, and they had a great 3-game run where we were saying I don't think they're getting enough praise for the run they're on against San Diego, Georgia, and Colorado, where they allowed under 10 goals. But the back-to-back weeks, this defense in that first half just has not looked good, and I don't know why they have to wait until the second quarter, right, or the second half to have that thing switch. But in the end, Phil, 6 caused turnovers in this game, 2 by the defense. That's not good enough. That shows lack of aggression and lack of, not care, but just lack of, jam, if you want to say that.
Yeah, that was my question too, is like, why is it taking to the second half for this team to turn it on, and then all of a sudden, Vince turns it on, the defense turns it on, and absolutely shuts down the other team so the offense can claw their way back into the game and try to take it back and win it. Again, same thing against Rochester, same thing against Colorado. I think they allowed 8 goals in the third quarter, so that was weird. I think it was actually 5 goals in the third quarter, but still, I mean, they just have these quarters where they're just terrible, and I just don't get how out of nowhere you're all of a sudden just a really bad team. I mean, there were 2 power play goals in the second quarter, and even though it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, which I wish it did somehow, I'm not sure what they would do to show it, but realistically, of the second quarter goals, 4 of them in a way were on the power play because 2 were on the delayed penalty, and in both of those situations, New York was able to get the 6th attacker on and set something up and scored immediately on that using their 6th attacker. So even though it doesn't show up in the stat sheet, technically, if you want to put it that way, New York was 4 of 6 on the power play because 2 of them were delayed, and both times it wasn't a situation where they just happened to score while they still had 5 guys on there and the 6th one was running on. They actually set up very specific 6-man power play unit style and scored on both of them. And I think 4 of the second quarter goals were on man up advantages in some way, shape, or form. So that obviously hurts. The Riptide are one of the best. I think they are still the best team in the entire league on the power play and man up unit, and that showed again. And then Buffalo had a 5-on-3 opportunity and couldn't put one in. I don't know what their power play is doing. All of a sudden, they were one of the best in the entire league, and now these last couple of weeks, they've been not very good. I know Dunkerley actually had a pretty good game, and they were getting decent opportunities, but still, a 5-on-3, that has to be near automatic at this point when you have an offense this talented.
Yeah, I mean, we can go through it. Albany scored 8 in the second quarter on Buffalo. San Diego, game was pretty good. No bad periods.
And what happened in that game?
Georgia, no bad quarters. Colorado, you had 5 in the third. Rochester, 7 in the first. Not great. And then New York, 8 in the second. So, again, it's not an overall saying that this defense is just getting crushed. But we're not saying that.
But the good games, they don't allow that quarter. And then the bad games, they have one. That's the thing. Like, it's not like it's like a game like this where the Riptide scored 15. It's not 5-5-5-5. You know, it's not 4 quarters of 5 goals or anything like that. That would be more than that. But still, that'd be 20 goals. But it's not consistent. It's just one bad quarter where they're just terrible. Then all of a sudden they lock it down the rest of the game. And that's what needs to be cut out of these bad games. Rochester, same thing. Like, it's just not consistent scoring throughout the game by the opposing team. It's one bad quarter of miserable play, and the rest of it, they look okay.
Yeah, that's where this kind of run like that is one where I just wish, and I get that the NLL is different than different sports. Like, when there's a run in basketball, you call a timeout. When there's a run in hockey, try to regroup, you call a timeout. Those are the runs that I just wish that John Tavares would just burn one of those timeouts and just go, hey, calm down, relax. I think that was part of pulling Matt Vince and then putting him back in. I get that. Give him a break. But before you even do that, I just wish you would call a timeout and just say, guys, we're still good. Relax. Or just something along those lines, because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, in the 3 years we've been covering this, that's ever been done. Like, out of these runs, the Albany game, even just this year, if you want to talk about it, this year with Albany, Rochester, and now New York, in those bad quarters and those bad runs, I don't remember John Tavares ever calling a timeout and just trying to settle everything down. And I don't know if that's just not a norm for the NLL. I'll have to, try to keep track of that moving forward, watching all these games that I do. But I just wish that would be a little bit of an idea moving forward, rather than just letting it go and trying to have your team work it out. And again, that we're not trying to be overcritical of the defense that's had 3 bad quarters. We get that. I mean, they're sitting at 3-3. The world's not ending. The team's not down the drain. They're still, if the playoffs start today, they're the 5th seed. They're still in the playoffs. The teams in front of them are not doing great, besides like a handful of them, with Albany losing and Toronto sitting at 5-0 and all that kind of stuff. But this is a thing where the championship run last year, they didn't have these bad quarters. And again, the defense is very different. If they can take that out of their game and just find a way to stop these bad quarters and these bad runs. And even in the second, it wasn't the full second. It was a bad 7-minute stretch where it was just a horrible 7-minute stretch. But even that quarter, it wasn't a full quarter. It was a 7-minute stretch that really put the nail into the coffin. Not hammered it down, but the nail in the coffin. And it ended up being a Dane Smith penalty kill pick that was just unbelievable. He goes down and scores. That kind of stopped the run. And that's what needed to stop it. But it was a ugly second quarter, that's for sure. So I don't know if you got any more negatives and move to the positives, or what you're thinking about this one.
As far as the timeout goes, I think in the first half, I would like to see it more often. Second half, I understand you want to save that for a potential end of game. You're down by 1, need that last second goal. You want to set up that play, or I'm not sure. I'd have to look at it. I'm not sure how challenges and timeouts work for the NLL. I don't know if you take your time out, if you lose a challenge, or if those have anything to do with each other. So something we'd have to look at. But for the first half ones, where it's the first quarter or the second quarter, where that timeout doesn't mean quite as much, I would like to see exactly what you said. And even when I was watching the game and it just kept going over and over, and especially some of those were so quickly put in, I was wondering the exact same thing, like call a timeout and just settle this team down in order to stop this run. Like, it's just runs like this are what lacrosse is built on. That's how you lose games. That's exactly what happened. So as far as positives, I mean, the offense for the most part looked good. If you consider the entire game, I mean, they scored 6 in the first, 7 in the second. That's very consistent and fine. I'm okay with a 13-goal game. Most times the Bandits will win 13-goal games. It's just similar games like this where they kind of get in trouble with the defense having those runs, and you just get in too big of a hole. But for the most part, I thought the offense looked okay. Cloutier seemed to disappear a little bit in this game. He ended up with 0 points, but overall, the offense looked good enough. I mean, Fraser was shooting a lot more than I thought he was recently.
I thought this was his best game overall as for the year.
And he's just letting it rip. The last couple of games, he's been over 10 shots. I don't know. I'd have to look at it real quick what he had in this one. It was high again.
17?
17, yeah. He outshot
18,
Byrne by 4, which is just incredible. So he's just absolutely letting it rip, which is fine. And I mean, if you're going to put in 4 goals and 17 shots, I'll take that all day. So for the most part, I thought the offense was fine. The power play concerns me, though. Not scoring on a 5-on-3, or in general not scoring on a 5-on-4, like 1 out of 4 power play opportunities does not look good. I think they should be closer to 60% pretty much every game with the amount of talent they have on that team. So I think that has been bad in back-to-back games. So that, to me, is something that is a little bit concerning. But for the most part, the only other issue I really had with the offense was Dunkerley seemed to be ducking or stopping low shots really, really easily. He's a goalie that likes to move around a lot, but I just don't know why they didn't shoot high on him more often. He seemed to really protect the low side of the net much more frequently and often. Like, the low shot just were not working because he pretty much just drops down to his knees like a hockey goalie and saves it. But a lot of their upper shots that they were scoring on, or the fakes when they got in close, that seemed to be what was working the best. And they seemed to capitalize on it early and then went away from it in the second half. The first half, they were passing extremely well, finding inside lanes, faking out Dunkerley with multiple moves. And then the second half, they just kind of shaded away from that, and they were able to score a few of those same goals. But it seemed like they were settling for those outside shots, which I do not like when they settle for. I understand every once in a while, the defense is not going to allow you to be getting an inside look every single possession. It happens. You're going to have to shoot from the outside, but it seems like they just get too complacent at times in the second half to just accept we're going to shoot outside and just kind of hope it works.
Yeah, I just got a few more things on this game. The offense battling back, that was big, seeing that they're capable of going on their own type of runs like that and not letting the score dictate how they're going to be playing. I really like that. I mean, Dunkerley had a very good game, but a lot of times, like you said, the offense was making it a bit too easy for him. Defense, much better in the second half. I firmly agree with that. Vince was just absolutely an animal in the second half, making unbelievable saves. And then I thought the faceoffs, for as many people complaining and whining and crying about needing a faceoff guy, I don't think they're fully grasping what Ian McKay is doing at that faceoff dot, where yes, if you had Max Adler, I think your faceoffs are like a 50-50 opportunity. Maybe better like 60-40 in the favor of Buffalo Bandits, depending on who he's going against. But you're not going to get the battles and the scrums and the quick turnovers that Ian McKay is causing. He's causing havoc in the faceoff dot, and that's the point of it. Like, we've been saying for, going on 3 years now, that faceoffs really matter in certain situations. Where in this one, New York had a 19-12 advantage in faceoffs. Buffalo had a 60-44 advantage in shots. So faceoffs and shots do not correlate. You need a faceoff win in those crunch situations. And in the Georgia game, he got it. He got it both times. In this one, he might not have gotten it, but guess what? You're not going to get every single one of them. If Max Adler was in there, if Trevor Baptiste was in there, if T.D. Erlin was in there, he might not win that one. I mean, sure.
Honestly, he got the last one. Fraser won the ball back, picked it up, and then just got leveled. I mean, I'm not going to go over that. That's why they lost the game. But realistically, on that very last faceoff that you needed to win, Fraser was still able to win that ball off of Ian McKay. Like, it's not like he won it straight and they were able to just run away with the ball. Like, New York still had to scramble, go pick it up. They didn't pick it up. Fraser picked it up and then got trucked over, but it wasn't a straight win by their faceoff guy to just pick it up, scoop it, and run away. Like, Ian McKay still did exactly what you wanted to do in that situation, and it was still a scramble for the faceoff, and the Bandits had the ball. They physically had the ball at the very end of the game there in that faceoff situation. So,
correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that was a faceoff, though. I think that was a rebound shot that they had to go chase down.
Wasn't it off of Teet's goal, or am I thinking of that one?
No, you're thinking something else, because they scored on that one where Fraser got hammered, and that was at the dying 2 seconds left of the game.
That's what I was thinking of, but yes.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, the point still stands. The scrambles after the face-off are what's more important, and a lot of times they're winning those out. I mean, how many times did you see that, the New York would win it, but then there would be a scramble for the loose ball and a caused turnover there because of what Ian McKay is doing. So you can complain and whine, and I'm sure it's going to continue until Max Adler comes back, and if he actually does. But faceoffs don't correlate with wins and losses in this league. It's nice to have in your back pocket that you have a guy that you can rely on, but T.D. Erlin was out at a Toronto game. Toronto still ended up winning. They were having Billy Haustrauser take the faceoffs, and guess what? They still won by 3. So I just wish more people, and I'm not going to try to go on a rant here because we're running long already, but I don't think people actually look at the numbers. They just look at, we got beat 15-13 and we lost the faceoffs. There must be some it's not correlation. There's no correlation between winning faceoffs and winning games. It just isn't there. It doesn't happen. It's one of those things that and Matt Vince is washed up. He's old. He's 41 years old. He can't do it anymore. They got lucky last year. They won in spite of him. It's just things like that make me want to ram my head through a wall, because there's just some people out there, and I know there's select few, and I know the people that talk the loudest are the ones that are just not the brightest, but it's those comments that I've learned to just stay off of social media looking after a loss or a win, because it's mind numbing, and it makes me feel like I'm in a la la land of stupidity.
Yeah, Vince is the same goalie that only allowed 4 goals in a Game 3 of a championship.
You know, the guy that's got over 10,000 saves in his career now, too?
That's the one. He's horrible.
150 wins.
You only get that many saves if you're really bad at your job. That's all.
Yep. And we'll get a comment. Oh, how many goals did he let in? Shut up. Okay. Phil, is there any other things you want to talk about this game, or can we kind of move on to the milestones?
No, I think we're coming in pretty hot from the Bills.
That's true. Okay. Like we said, 3-3, long season to go. La-di-da. We'll talk about the Toronto game on the next show. But milestones, like we said, you can view all these before the game. Matt Vince, he did move into sole possession of 4th place in NL history with 275 games. He also did cross the 10,000 save mark. Unbelievable. Chris Cloutier got his 2 shots, so he's up over 400 for his career. Nanakoke got his 100th loose ball in this one. Brandon Robinson also got his 100th loose ball in this one. Nick Weiss moved into sole possession of 8th place in Buffalo Bandits history with 117 games played. Chase Frazier is in sole possession of 8th place in Buffalo Bandits goal scoring mark with 4 in that one. Josh Byrne also moved into sole possession of 4th place in assists for the Buffalo Bandits, and Dane Smith is now in sole possession of 2nd place in Buffalo Bandits history in points, and he's got a ways to go to catch Johnny T.
But will he get there? That's the question.
I think he will. I think he's got a very, very good shot at it if he keeps up this current pace, which I know down later in his career they might slow down, but he's averaging 130 some odd points each year recently. I think he's got a great shot at it.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's pretty good. We talked about that last time. He's pretty good. But we'll look around the league real quick. Toronto 12-9 victory over Georgia. San Diego 14-7 win over Albany, and Doug Jamieson did get hurt in that one, so check the injury report moving forward. Vancouver 11-9 upset win over Saskatchewan Rush. They went on an unbelievable run in the second half where Saskatchewan just didn't score for like a quarter and a half. It was really gross. And then Colorado over Vancouver 13-10. So some upsets, some teams ahead of Buffalo continue to win, some teams ahead of Buffalo continue to lose, some teams behind Buffalo win, some teams behind Buffalo lose. This unified standings is absolutely crazy 8 weeks in.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, 3-3. It's not where the Bandits really want to be, but it's not terrible. So I mean, it's not what we're used to when they've only lost 4 games the entire season for 3 straight years. So I mean, it's a little bit of new territory for them to already be 3-3. But with that, I mean, the Bandits also go on insane 10-1 runs or 11-1 runs. So we know that this team is built to go on massive win streaks. They can do it. So 3-3, while it doesn't look great, not doom and gloom. They're going to be okay.
Yeah, they were 4-2 at this point last year, so
They're fine.
not superly concerned. Their schedule moving forward is very tough, but
if you win some of those games, you're looking great.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be able to move ahead of some more teams. You'll be able to pull some teams back to you. So, like we said, as much as we were
big stretch,
kind of harping a bit on the Bandits, 3-3. Season's not over. It's not even close to being over. There's just some things you got to tinker, and if you can limit those bad quarters and those bad stretches, you're going to be pretty good. Not really overly concerned. Just stay tuned for if there's any moves for Dietrich if there's another bad quarter ahead in the Toronto game, because he tends to make moves after really bad games. So we'll move on to our last segment here, and God, Phil, there's like 36 some odd games left of the season. Buffalo Sabres, Thursday versus Chicago. They won 3-0. They did their job. Gergensen, Peterka, and Dahlin were the goal scorers. UPL, another shutout, 19 of 19 saves. Shots were 31-19 in favor of Buffalo. And then Saturday, the letdown happened because, we can't have nice things in this world. 3-1 loss versus the Lightning. Cousins was the only goal scorer. UPL, 13 of 15 saves. Shots were 27-16 in favor of Buffalo. And Phil, before we dive into it, that Saturday game, was watching it live, fell asleep after the second intermission because it was so boring.
Yeah. Yeah. So they won one game and they lost. I don't know.
Against one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, and even that, honestly, Chicago looked like it was a pretty even game for the most part, despite I know they outshot Chicago 31-19, but as far as actually decent scoring opportunities go, Chicago had quite a decent amount of them that UPL had to stuff, and even the power play goal that went in against Chicago was off of the Chicago's defense, and they're the ones who actually put it in, so it wasn't even a nice setup by the Sabres. There was extreme luck that it went in. Gergensen's goal was a nice tip. Peterka banked it off the goalie's face in order to score, and Chicago at one point had 7 shorthanded shots in this game. I understand that they had a lot of power play or penalty kill opportunities, but still the amount of opportunities that they were allowed shorthanded was ridiculous. And then the Tampa Bay game, like you said, just again, I know they outshot them, but the shots you're getting are so terrible. Like they're terrible. Like, I mean, it was an article by The Athletic that I just read, and it was basically saying good luck to the Sabres the rest of the way, but they had some metrics by hockeyviz.com, and it kind of just shows I don't know if you've ever seen the hot and cold zones of where a team is shooting from throughout the season. So far this year, their cold zones are directly in front of the net and right down the entire center of the offensive zone. And last year, their hot zone was directly in front of the net where you score goals from. It's pretty weird. And last year, they were a top 5 offense. This year, they are terrible. So it's almost like they have no interest in getting to the dirty zones where you actually need to score goals, and they just love sitting on the perimeter throwing really long, easy to save shots and saying, hey, look at that, we have 31 shots on net, we're a great team. They're not. The shots they're getting are just so poor and lack of quality, and it's just a miserable style of hockey to play, and it's so annoying seeing no one want to get to the dirty areas of the ice to actually put goals in. I think Cousins, when he scored against the Lightning, surprise, surprise, it was in front of the net because that's where you tend to score goals from. But just seeing that map kind of pretty much summed up the entire season. There's just no intensity from this team or no willingness to actually want to get to the dirty areas, play a tough game of hockey, and want to score. Like the younger players and Benson, Peterka, Cousins, UPL, Quinn, like they still look good. They still look like they're having fun. They look like they're trying hard, but outside of maybe Dahlin and occasional effort plays by other players, everyone else just seems like they're out there and could really care less about what happens to this team, and we're just right back to where we were almost a decade ago, and it's lovely. It's a lovely time to be a Sabres fan and realize you're once again not going to make playoffs. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, real quick, Brooke's getting home now, so you might be hearing some dog action in the background. But I completely agree. We've been saying this for a while, that they're not getting into the areas they need to score, as you're hearing Reed bark in the background, because he's upset with this team as well. So I'll try to talk louder. But imagine what this team would be without the play of UPL recently. And his last 6, if you exclude the Lightning game, because I don't have the updated numbers for that one, 5-1, 1.17 goals against, and a 956 save percentage.
Yeah, he is. In his last 7, he's 5-2 with a 1.29 948 save percentage. So not much worse, even with that Lightning.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we were calling for steady goaltending play all of last year because their offense was so good. We're getting it now, and their offense is just I'm not going to get mad because I've already been mad a lot this episode. But I don't understand where this idea to change up their play style went. I don't get it. I mean,
they did too well last year.
So. Apparently, I don't know if it was just like, hey, we have to be better on defense, but guess what? You're not really that much better on defense. Your goaltender's just bailing you out. It's just I don't know what to do, and I kind of wish the Bills and the Sabres seasons were reversed and the Sabres were done, because they're toast. And we've been saying it for a while. They have to go on this unbelievable run, and they just can't do it. They can't beat the teams in front of them. Like Tampa Bay, you would have been able to pull a little dent in it if you were able to do that, but Tampa Bay goes up early because of 2 dumb mistakes. Middlestad just fiddles it with it around the boards, and then he can't get it out. And then Tuck, I don't know what happens. It was like the NHL just, when we were playing Chell and your player just like lags. Yeah, the puck got stuck on the ice. He moves, and then there's a breakaway on the other end, and it's a shorthanded goal, which, yes, UPL probably should have had his pad on the ground, but he shouldn't have to face a 1-on-0 shot on the shorthanded opportunity there. And then what happens is they go down early. And then what happens with every other team, Tampa Bay plays off, and then Sabres can't do anything because they don't want to dump the chase. They try to fiddle around in the neutral zone, trying to get it past and try to get it in the zone, and then they can't do anything like that. Like you said, the 27 shots, you outshot them by 11, but how quality were those shots? They weren't. It's just they almost feel like they're playing like we were so good last year. We came up just short. We're kind of entitled to playing this style. I'm so frustrated with this team. I really am. And I need something good to happen, and there's just nothing good on the horizon to look forward to. I mean, they sent down Levi, and I'm like, good, they made a smart decision. They're getting in playing time. And then they called him right back up because they got a West Coast trip, and they're like, well, we need him. I
almost punted my phone across.
He's gonna play one of these 2 games either. Yeah, he's gonna play either on Tuesday night or Wednesday night.
Why can't Comrie do that? Why
don't get it.
I have to be pulled up just to go to the West Coast. Like, why can Comrie not handle that? What is the big deal?
It's just the things
so
that
frustrating.
is happening. I can't understand how this team can go from, and I guess I get it because we were talking about it where you were relying on so many of these guys that had career years last year, and I'm like a broken record because I have nothing else to talk about here, that you were relying on these guys that had career seasons last year to do it again, and they're not doing it. And yes, injuries play a small factor in it, but other teams have injuries as well, and they're not having the same effect. It's the curse of Buffalo. It really is for the Sabres and the Bills.
The style of hockey they're playing this year is so
boring.
Far away from what they played last year. And like last year it worked. This year, let's do the exact opposite, and it's not working, but we're going to stick with it because, sure, why not? Why not?
They put me to sleep, Phil. This team literally, like, I'm not even lying. They put me to sleep with how boring it was.
Terrible.
Like, they were in it. It was 2-1, and I felt they're not winning this one. They can't get by this deep. The only time they scored was because Cousins was left wide open on the doorstep, and I think I heard it was like a 55-mile-an-hour wrist shot. It's just, even looking at the playoffs here, because I have the playoff bracket here, why not? They're 9 points out of a playoff spot, but they do have a game in hand over Tampa Bay, Phil. Whoopee. But there's New York Islanders ahead of them, Washington's ahead of them, New Jersey's ahead of them, Pittsburgh's ahead of them, Montreal's ahead of them, and none of those teams that I just mentioned are in a playoff spot. That's how far back they are. They're not making playoffs. Even if they go on an unbelievable run, which they're not capable of because they haven't been capable of it all year, I want to have a company vote that we vote them off the show. And we'll just be a one-show podcast moving forward.
It's going to be a very depressing 36 games to just... I don't know. We're going to have to just quickly mention, yep, they are still playing. They won one, lost one, because that's what they do, and we'll see you next week.
We do have a benefit. After this West Coast trip, they do get like a week off where we don't have to talk about them.
I was going to say that there's some very exciting news for the Sabres. They have an all-star break coming up, and thank goodness, because it'll be a nice little vacation for us.
So if you're sick of hearing us talk about the Sabres, imagine how we are talking about them. And that's why we put the time breakdown. So if we're talking about the Sabres and you're sick of it, you can skip ahead. But Phil, is there anything else you want to add to this riveting show of Cry Fest and Complain Fest that we've been on? Let me know. Otherwise, we can kind of shut it down.
Yeah, no, I'm depressed enough about this entire episode.
You had a very rough couple days, not just with the losses, but you got COVID. And yeah, it hasn't been a good week for half this podcast.
Now I'm ready to put this weekend far, far, far behind me. Move forward.
So I am wearing my Savannah Bananas hat to try to bring some positivity to this show.
I did have to wear my Bandits championship hat just to remind myself that a team did recently win the championship.
Yeah, we're hard on the teams that we love, and that's why we were so hard on the Bills and the Bandits. But yeah, moving forward, this is a 1.5 team show. Whoopee. But yeah, on our next show that will be coming out on Friday, that is the one benefit of the Bills going out now, Phil. We don't have to adjust our schedule anymore because starting to think, what do we do for the Super Bowl? Like it's going to have to be another delayed, and we're both going to be very, very not prepared if they win a Super Bowl, and if we're definitely not going to be prepared if they lose one. We don't have to worry about it. Talking about Bills games are done. So no more Tuesday shows, random Tuesday shows. We are strictly Monday and Friday shows now because NLL doesn't do that to us like the NFL does. But on our next show, we will talk about the nominees and the awards for the BSC award show for the Buffalo Bills, the 3rd annual. Stay tuned for Pat's lovely graphics that will be coming out on Monday after we had announced the winners. We'll break down the Sabres 2 games that will be happening before we talk again. Whoopee for that, Tuesday and Wednesday on the West Coast trip. And then the Bandits face the rivals Toronto Rock and Hamilton on Saturday night. So some big matchups in the NLL coming up this week. And I had a very bad pick'em week for the NLL. You had a better one than me, and Pat's just running away with it. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com where you can read Phil's article that is dropping today on Tuesday, and then my power rankings come out on Thursday. Both of those on the website. Once again, buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.